You know, a wise man once said, with great power comes an even greater set of brakes. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to show you how to upgrade my stock brakes here to bigger, badder, even stronger brakes, so stay tuned for more. Thank you guys for continuing to watch and sub to the channel here. So this small channel is starting to grow little by little, so I'm very happy about it. So once again, I want to thank you guys for that and for continuing to show your support for this build series. I still got a lot more updates to share with you guys. I will continue to post regularly on both YouTube and Instagram. Now, if you guys remember my last video, I upgraded the exhaust tips to extend out further so it doesn't melt my diffuser. And I have to say, I think it actually looks pretty damn fire. Now that we received that bump in power, I now find it takes just a little bit more pressure on the brake pedal, and I thought it might have just been my rotors, thought it might have been my brake pads, but it's not. The brake pads are still pretty new, so it looks like it's time for some bigger brakes here. Truck Norris, you got another nail in here? God damn it, every fucking time. Anyway, back to the brakes. Fine, I'm gonna need bigger brakes. We're upgrading the single piston calipers to dual piston calipers. Now, I've done my research, which I already know a lot of you already do. At first, I was gonna spend the big bucks on some of like the top name brand brakes. I really don't need all of that. My car isn't all that powerful, and what I find I really need is just another set of caliper pistons. So I'm not really doing any like racing up and down these residential police-filled streets and highways, so I'm really not going all that fast. But when I do let the ponies out, I do find it would be nice to have some emergency braking power. Enter the 2005 Hyundai XG350 dual caliper pistons. Enter the 2005 Hyundai XG350 dual piston calipers. Now, the Hyundai XG350 is a 3.5 liter V6 sedan back in like the early 2000s, and that was actually replaced by what is known now as the Hyundai Azera. As you can see, the Azera kind of looks like the Honda Accord version of the Sonata. All right, let me rephrase that. God forbid I ever compare any Hondas or Hyundai. I mean, what the hell was I thinking? The Azera looks like a meteor version of the Sonata, so they all kind of share the same platform, except for the brakes. At some point during the production, Hyundai decided they were going to downgrade the brakes on the Sonata down to a single piston, mostly because of two reasons. One, the Sonata is not as heavy as the Azera. Okay, so it doesn't require a lot of the bigger brakes, and for the second reason, it's probably production cost savings. But the XG350's brake calipers still fit the Sonata's braking frame, and I got those at the fraction of the price. A lot of you already know this already, so I'm not going to put a link down in the video to where I got these calipers because they're pretty easy to find. Just look up Hyundai XG350. The ones I got off of eBay. You could get those from anywhere between like 100 to 200 bucks for like a set. I also got a set of blacked out drilled and slotted rotors. That looks pretty fire. And I was supposed to get the Optima 320 millimeter size. For some reason, these are only the 300 millimeter size, which are the exact same size of the rotors I have on now. I don't want to say it was either them that messed up or me. It's probably me. Regardless, those are some nice rotors, and I'm going to put those on the car here. Plus, they actually match the black and blue theme that I got going on here, so I think those are going to look pretty fire. Plus, the company I got these from, I do shop for them a lot, and I don't want to mess up any potential business opportunities I might have with them, so there you have it. Now, I read somewhere that the black rotors will actually fade over time from the brake pads, but I still like the way that looks, so I'm going to put those on. Now, we're going to look to put the new calipers on the car, but before I do that, you know I like to take it to the next level. I'm actually going to be spray painting them, and I'm not going to be just spray painting them any old color. I'm going to be spray painting them a metallic blue candy. I've actually always liked that color, and as you can see right here, I painted my original set of calipers the same style, and it's got some chipping going on here because I didn't know what the hell I was doing at first. That's just my little spin on it. Everyone else always has silver or red calipers. I like blue, so we're going to get started with that. I'll show you all the cans that I'm going to use to spray paint this thing to get that look I desire. About 2 coats of primer. Next would be about 2 coats of the base coat. We're going to put on about 10 to 12 coats of the Duplicolor metal cast anodized coating. This is the blue. This is going to give that nice metallic sheen. Then we're going to gloss it down. Then about 2 coats of this glitter. So this will allow it to sparkle in the sun. And then finally coat it off with another 2 or 3 more coats of the gloss enamel, and that'll finish up the caliper. Now, the first time I did this, I actually didn't prime it and put down the base coat on my original calipers. They came already red, and I just spray painted them the metal cast blue. It started to chip and peel. So this time, I learned my lesson. I'm gonna prime it, then put down the base coat, and then I'll spray paint it with the anodized blue. So yeah, I had to learn the hard way, but as the saying goes, failure is the best teacher. So yeah, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Now, you may already be saying to yourself, that's a lot of unnecessary spray painting for these calipers, and you're probably right. But when these bad boys are cleaned and when the sun is shining and hitting it just right, these things are going to sparkle like Jolly Ranchers in the sun. We're not going to remove this just yet. First, we're going to pop this open. Can't really do that because the brake line not long enough. But before I remove this, there's actually a banjo bolt back here that the brake line feeds through. And I'm going to crack this open. It's better to crack this open now than to try to crack it open when you have the caliper off, because it's going to be a pain in the ass to do. But you want to be careful when you crack this open. You don't want to take the banjo bolt completely off. Just loosen it up, because brake fluid is going to start coming out. Doing it this way would just make it a lot easier to get this banjo bolt off later. Alright, that's cracked open. Just going to hand tighten it. So you can see brake fluid is already leaking out. Remember, brake fluid is very corrosive, so you want to wear gloves and eye protection on this. You also want to have something to catch all that drippage. So I got my oil pan right up under here, and over here I've got my bucket because I'm going to set my brake caliper up on top of this bucket. You don't want your brake caliper to just hang, otherwise you'll damage your brake line. So what you can do is get like a wire hanger, make a couple of hooks out of it, hook it up to one end of the caliper, and then hook the other end up to your spring. Now I've got air suspension, so I got bags here, so there's really nowhere for me to hang this up. So I'm just going to take this off and lay it on top of my bucket over here. Now we can take off the entire caliper and set this off to the side over here, right up here, and brake fluid start to come out. Put that off to the side. Make sure there's no tension on the brake line, because that'll just be another problem that you need to worry about later on, and I don't feel like changing brake lines. Let's pop out the brake pads. And these are still pretty new, so these can be reused, but because of the new bracket, I've got different brake pads, and these actually won't fit. It's a different model, so these I got to get rid of. Next, I'm going to take this caliper bracket off. There are two bolts back here. Let's see if I can show you. Here's the top one you want to remove, and here's the bottom one right there. Now these are torqued to spec to 80 pounds. Now these caliper bracket bolts we're going to reuse, so I'll clean these up and just put off to the side for now. Boom. Now the bracket comes free. Next, we're going to take off the rotor. The rotor is secured by these two screws right here. And the good tool to use to get those screws off is this hammer punch. Now this hammer punch has a mechanical impact bit in here, so when you punch it, this will actually turn. This will actually force the bit into the screw, applying pressure and turning it at the same time, so that way you don't strip the screw. Now when you take these two screws off, if the rotor is not seized to the hub, the rotor should just come right off. Now I actually prepped these new rotors up here a long time ago, and I put some anti-seize on the back of it and on the face of the hub, so there shouldn't be any rust on here. But if there is rust on this rotor is going to be seized on here, locking it tight. And the only thing that's holding it It's just the rust behind it. Now, if you do have some rust on here, there's pretty much one or two ways that I find is the best way to get this rotor off. You can, one, get a screw that is about the same width of this screw but a little longer, and you put it up in the screw hole and just keep screwing it in until the rotor pops off. Another method you could do, which is a surefire way, just get a hammer and just keep tapping along the face of the rotor. You don't want to tap the rotor itself because otherwise this just shatter into glass. You just start tapping the face of the rotor. Each tap you do will start breaking up the rust that's behind the rotor itself. It'll take some time to do, and I started to get discouraged last time I did this. It took me, I don't know, it took me a while, almost an hour to actually get this rotor off. So it was just so seized up here with so much rust. But eventually, doing the last tap, boom, it just fell down like that. Pulled it off, and there was so much rust caked up behind it. So when I put the new rotor on, I'm gonna put anti-seize right here, all along the inside of the rotor, and right along the face of the hub. Everywhere, I pretty much use anti-seize for everything that's metal to metal that's gonna be touching. So now that the rotor's off, we're gonna put this off to the side. All right, now we got the entire brake assembly off. Just to make sure that it won't rust to the hub. This right here is the new banjo bolt for the new caliper, and you can see there's a hole in the middle right at the top and a hole at the end. This is what allows the brake fluid from the line to feed into the caliper pistons. Also got these two copper washers right here. So I'm gonna take this one off, and gotta be quick because brake fluid is gonna be leaking out, and get it switched over to the new one. I'm gonna cover up the hub with some paper towels just in case, because I don't want any of that brake fluid leaking onto this hub here. Now, in getting the new banjo bolt onto the brake line and getting the brake line attached to the new caliper, I noticed that this little pin right here, this little hook, is, I guess, kind of like a anti-swivel pin, which keeps the brake line from swiveling. It's preventing the screw from going all the way through. There we go. Now we can get the rotor on and the new caliper. Now we're going to get the new caliper bracket on. Now we're putting the hardware on for the new brake pads. And once again, just a little bit of anti-seize on the back of the hardware. It's not necessary, but like I said, any metal to metal contact, I typically put on anti-seize anyway. Squealer goes in the back. There's a squealer right there. This one goes down below. Brake pads are on. These pins right here need to connect to the caliper bracket, and these need to slide freely. So there's not enough lubricant on this. Actually, these have hardly any lubricant on it at all. So I'm gonna put some of this, a liberal amount of the brake lubricant onto here, just like so. Now when the caliper sits on here, it'll be able to flow freely. And we got the brake pads on, we're gonna put the caliper on next. Seems that the brake line isn't long enough to reach down so I can screw in the caliper. Let's see if I can get the caliper on first, and then I'll put on the banjo bolt. Alright, so this part definitely was not easy to do. The brake line wouldn't fit with the caliper on, so I had to take the brake line off. Then I had to fit the caliper on, but the brake pads were too fat, so I had to shave down the front brake pad just a little bit so I can fit the caliper onto it because it would not close. Now it actually is kind of tight, but with some driving it'll start to loosen up. Reattach the brake line to the back of the caliper, but now the brake line bracket can no longer sit on here. I may have to rebend this so that it can reach, but we're almost done with this project. Now the very last step in this seemingly arduous process is to bleed the brakes. Now we got the caliper on, as I stated before, but now we need to run the rest of the brake fluid that's in the master cylinder down into the caliper, so when we're stepping on the brakes we're not just pushing through air. So we have a makeshift little pump slash reservoir here, and I'll put a little bit of the brake fluid down the bin here. I'm just using .3 for right now, which is the standard. And then I've got a hose connected through the top, running all the way up to the end, and this is going to connect to that nut right there. Now this is the release bolt to release the pressure, and when I crack this and start pumping, you'll start seeing some of the brake fluid leak out of that little nut right there. So I'm going to attach this and zip tie it, and then I'll start, and then I'll start pumping on the brake pedal until there's no more air bubbles up in here. Now I will crack this nut open just a little bit. That should be good. I don't want to take it all the way off. Now attach the hose and put the zip tie on it and start pumping the brake pedal until I start seeing fluid coming out of here. This is going to be a back and forth process, so I can't see what it looks like as I start pumping, so I got to pump a few times, come back, take a look, and see if this can is filling up. To make life easier, I'm going to open up the master cylinder's reservoir, just like that. Put this off to the side. And now when this starts to get a little low, I'll start filling in some more of the brake fluid. All right, we can see brake fluid starting to come up. So that's a good sign. And I'm just gonna do one more pump and see if I can force a lot of these air bubbles out. All right, looks like a lot less air bubbles now, which is really good. And that's really good. All right, cool. Now I don't see any more air bubbles. So now I could close this off. Don't splash on me. Making a damn mess here. All right, and now this job should be done. I'm just gonna top this off up here. Put the cap back on. There. And I did one more pump of the brake pedal, test it, and now this is dry as a bone. So now we are done. Kinda sucks I messed up my hard work paint job right here. So I'm gonna have to do some touch up. But that is it, you guys. You can tell by the sweat on my forehead, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect the bigger brake to actually be as tight as it really was up on this rotor here. So it could be a combination of the coating and all the layers of paint that I have on a caliper. So who knows? And for the brake line, I just zip tied it up here. It's not going anywhere. It'll probably be rattling around right here a little bit until I can figure out a better process for it. But you guys, one brake down, one more to go, and then I'll take it for a drive, see if I can loosen up these brakes here, loosen up these brake pads, and yeah, that should be it. So when it's all said and done, I'll have tougher brakes on this bad boy. But you guys, I want to thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking with me on this. If you got any questions, please feel free to leave it down in the comment section. If this helps, please subscribe, like the video, let me know what you think. Let's keep this thing going. But in the meantime, guys, keep your beard fresh, love what you do what you love. I'll catch you in the next one. What have we got here? I think I know what that is. What's in this box? What is this? Is this what I think it is?